The show today is packed with some serious topics, and I'm excited we have some special guests joining us today to work through some of them. But I wanted to prepare you. I was thinking to myself, how do we prepare for Scoop today? And it really was, I was thinking about how would I prepare a menu of news items for you? That's what I think about when it comes to smarter news. What are the things that you really need to nourish yourself so you're prepared for any developing story that comes? We always know breaking news could happen, something totally unexpected. But what can I do to prepare you? If I was working for you, and I am, but if I was your individual assistant and I was putting together a news feed for you, what would I think are the absolute essentials? And this week, the absolute essentials are really serious. They're very serious. And I think it's important to tackle them, especially when you wake up in the morning and you see a headline like this. This is from the New York Post. Nightmare on Wall Street. Stock market bloodbath sees Dow, NASDAQ plummet as renewed recession fears trigger global sell-off. So that's enough to get your attention, right? Maybe you weren't paying attention to the stock market over the last couple of weeks, and suddenly you may have seen something going into the weekend. But certainly today, the stock market is a major story. And a little background on my career in journalism, I actually worked my way up through business news. Business news is really my channel to getting to more general news and eventually a national news anchor position. But I didn't have a business background. I never traded stocks. I didn't study business in school. So I really had to learn a lot just from a purely ground level, which forced me to ask a lot of simple questions that I think are actually very helpful during times like this. And having lived through and reported through many different financial crises, one of the first things I would say to you is that we saw the stock market behave in a way that was concerning on Friday. There was a stock sell-off on Friday. But again, it's a summer Friday. So we have to be really careful about making too much of that news or making too much of losses or gains on really any day, because the stock market is a pendulum. It's going to go down, it's going to go up, it's going to move back and forth. And if we try to capture it and label it, we're actually not looking at the broader story, which is something that we want to do. What you should know about the stock market right now and stock markets around the world is that there's certainly an interconnectedness to all of them. The markets are connected, our economies are connected. So we have to remember that. And there are different things that are happening in different stock markets around the world that are also seeing sell-offs, including the market in Japan. But I'm not going to get too much into that today. What I want to tell you about today and what I think you should know about the stock markets here in the United States and why, you get a headline that says renewed recession fears are triggered. Here's what happened in just the last few days. Every first Friday of a month, we get a jobs report, and that's going to look back on the previous month. And what we saw on this particular Friday's report that was looking at July is a number that did not meet expectations. So it's not so much with the jobs report what the number is specifically, as much as whether or not it meets the expectations that Wall Street is looking for this particular number. And that number comes up from different analysts that are putting together, these are the expectations or the predictions for the job market. This is what we're looking for, a certain unemployment rate and a certain number of jobs were created. So the bottom line is that the jobs report on Friday was way lower than expected. And it's following up on several jobs reports that have shown that the job market has slowed down. Now, I'll say to you periodically, any one month, we're just going to look at a trend. We're not going to look at just that month to tell us what's going on. We want to look at a trend. So now we have several months of a slowing job market. On one hand, that's exactly what certain folks were looking for in an economy where inflation was an issue. Remember, the Federal Reserve is trying to drive this economy. We're trying to keep the economy on the tracks. They're trying to make sure that the economy stays healthy for the United States while also trying to tap on the brake a little bit to try to bring inflation down. When they tap on the brake, what they're doing is they're raising borrowing costs so that it becomes more expensive for you to borrow money and it slows down the economy a little bit. They're trying to do that because the economy is overheating and inflation is an issue. So what the Federal Reserve is doing is tapping on that brake, tapping on the brake. But they, just like, when you're driving a car, or you're on a bike or something like that, you get to the point where you've slowed down so much. Picking up speed on the other end is very difficult. And that's what the Fed doesn't want to do. They don't want to slow the economy so much that economic activity starts to be sluggish. Jobs aren't really created. The consumer is hurting even more. And now suddenly we wind up in a recession. And so this is the dance of the Federal Reserve. So last week, the Federal Reserve came out and said, you know what? We're not going to lower borrowing costs. We're going to keep on pressing on that brake a little bit. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. That combined with the jobs report that was much lower than expected raised concerns that maybe we've slowed the economy down too much. And if we've done that, coming back from that can be really a difficult thing to do. So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing concerns about the economy here at home. I want to show you this. This is from J.P. Morgan Chase's report. This is a Bloomberg graph, and what it's showing us is unemployment. And you can see if you just look at April, May, and June, it doesn't have July here. April didn't look great, but May and June didn't look too bad. But now we're going to have a much lower July report, and the question is are we at a precipice at the end of the year where we're really not seeing job creation and we're getting concerned about the job market? And wait a minute, it's the end of the year when there's holiday shopping and back to school, and we need the consumer super, super healthy so the economy stays healthy and we finish off the year in a good way. So this part of it is the timing of this, part of it is the trend, but this is all a factor in concerns about a potential recession. We are far away from the news that we have today and suddenly a more sophisticated conversation about recession. But the mere fact that it's even out there and that it's not just in the United States stock market and that there's concerns from stock markets for different reasons around the world, we really have to pay attention to this because especially in a year that we're in an election year like we're in right now, there's always a focus that returns to the economy. But if we have a focus that returns to the economy that's not just driven by voters, it's driven by data, then the campaigns that we're seeing right now have to vastly change to speak to the American public. And so this is something we should watch. We should watch it because we're an important member of the economy and our behavior matters, but we should watch it and how it plays out politically. If you guys have any questions on that, I'll be curious about it because this is I think it's an important piece of the puzzle here when we're looking at the state of America. And so we have this instability when it comes to the stock market and brief as it's been just a few days. So we're going to watch to see not only how does the stock market end. This is one of the valuable lessons I learned as a new journalist in the financial world. It's not just how the stock market ends in a day. It's also how it ends the week. So where we are right now, we're going to see what do we look like on Friday? Are we still in a period of time where there's a lot of turmoil? Have we seen gains back? What does that look like? And so that's a little bit of perspective for you. It's not just how the market opens and how it closes. It's not just how it opens on Monday, it's how it closes on Friday. And so we'll watch for that, especially this week. But this instability isn't just about the economy. One of the other ways that we're looking at the world this week is some instability when it comes to the Middle East. And I want to explain to you why.